Ciaran Carey. Ciaran, delighted to be back. I suppose you always know when the two of us end up talking, we're either inside Nenzo's having chips or we're here on the podcast talking about hurling. And it's great. Number one, it's great to be back. Hopefully we'll be in for chips soon enough too when things open up. But it's a strange one, Ciaran, in that I suppose the All-Ireland final was played back in December. We haven't had any hurling since, and here we are looking down the barrel of the inter-county season again as it's about to kick off this weekend.
Yeah, great to be chatting to you, Raphael. Didn't see you in a while. And I suppose you're playing down the chips because we don't have chips in their own, as you rightly know. It's usually a bucket of curry and a bucket of chicken as well, and compliments your dad. And the GA is usually spoken in there as well. Yeah, it is. Come here, it's after going very quick, and I suppose it wasn't too long ago the big topic of the conversation was how many All-Stars Limerick were going to get. I don't think I was speaking to you since, and that's too long ago, and I suppose we got 9. And I suppose I would have been hugely touting for William O'Donoghue 10 and possibly Barry Nash as well. I think I need to get that in there. They were extremely unlucky. I probably felt really myself personally, you know, when a team shows greatness, and what Limerick did last year in you know, as they say in the soccer terms, they did the triple, the league, the Munster Championship and the All-Ireland. You know, I believe you must reward a team and you must reward players for greatness. And I know how difficult it is to pick a particular team, but I have to say William O'Donoghue and Barry Nash, without a doubt, in my opinion, were very, very unfortunate they didn't get picked. But as you rightly pointed out, yeah, Saturday night, Limerick and Tipperary, Gaelic rounds. Okay, it's great to have the games coming back, but what relevance does it really mean this Saturday night? I suppose that's what I'm reading between the questions you're asking me. But I suppose only time will tell. I think the league really is a very poor secondary presently at the moment. And I suppose from a Limerick point of view, really, because, you know, John Kiely came out during the week, he's picking from a pool of 38. And whereas him and his backroom staff probably might want to take it handy enough, any player that gets the green light and gets a jersey on that given day, they'll want to show what they're made of. So, you know, unfortunately, Limerick, you know, either way will be going out guns blazing, I'd imagine. And any player that will be playing will want to show John Kiely what they're made of.
Yeah, no Tipperary team, excuse me, as of yet, but the Limerick 26 match day squad, Nicky Quaid in goal, Aaron Costello, Sean Finn, Richie English, Diarmaid Burns, Kyle Hayes, Barry Nash, William O'Donoghue and Darragh O'Donovan at midfield. Tom Morrissey, David Reedy and Conor Boylan make up the half-forward line. Adrian Breen, Seamus Flanagan and David Dempsey, the inside-forward line. Barry Hennessy, Jerome Boylan, Peter Casey, Ronan Connolly, Josh Considine, Garrod Hegarty, Cian Lynch, Darren O'Connell, Brian O'Grady, Mark Quinlan and Brian Ryan. We also saw, I suppose, the addition earlier in the week to the squad of Tom Hayes, Cathal O'Neill and Coughlin from Ballybrown. So yeah, John Kiely, I suppose, starting to mix it up again, like he has done over the last few years, and bringing 2-3 new faces into the panel every year to start fighting for places and start putting pressure on fellas. And it's a formula that has served him well heretofore, Ciaran. And again, looking at what he's trying to do in this first match against Tipperary, it's very much a case of, I'd say, just let these lads out and let's see what they can do. There's a good few positional changes as well. You know, Kyle Hayes moving to number 6. You'd imagine that Kyle Hayes has probably been groomed for that number 6 slot when Declan Hannon decides to hang up his boots.
Yeah, and I suppose I got a bit of stick at the start of 2018 before there was any ball thrown in. I was touting for him for 6, but I was a bit premature. Thank God I was, because Declan Hannon has been outstanding from that time to now and has led Limerick to 2 Super All-Irelands. But yeah, no surprise to me really seeing Kyle Hayes actually going back last year, number 1, how well he did, number 2. And I suppose staying with Kyle Hayes, he's the type of player really, and you couldn't say this about too many players. Myself personally, I'd be confident if he was 3, anywhere in the half back line, anywhere in the half forward line, he'd more than hold his own. And I suppose, and when you go back to last year and see how he played, you know, he was centre forward in 18, he was half back last year. Barry Nash wasn't in team in 18. He was cornerback, and you know, I just looked at the both teams the other day, and every line was tweaked with in some shape or some form, bar the full forward line. And, you have to do that. And going back to the 4 players that are after coming in, young Coughlin, as you rightly pointed out, young Hayes, Barry Murphy from Doon, who had a very good year. And, it was just a matter of time, and it was inevitable. Cathal Neal was going to come into the scene. And, and I suppose the trend, looking at the players the last number of years, how slow. And they're right, they're having a bit of patience and kind of get them into the system, get them into the training regime, and blood them in nice and slowly. But Cathal Neal is slightly different. He's a guy, that could take a bit of action in the coming season, So he'd be one to watch out for. And I suppose John Kiely going about his business and the management in the team that they picked this Saturday night, they're dead right to go with that team, And even having said that, it's a very strong team they still put out.
Yeah, it is. I don't think there's any such thing as a weak Limerick team at the moment with the level and the depth of talent that's there. And again, with the format of this league this year, it has basically amounted to a series of challenge matches, really, to be honest with you. And I think only with the relaxation around the rules around challenge matches in the last week, it really meant nothing because teams hadn't time to prepare or to organize any games. So kind of this is our preseason, really, in terms of getting guys up to speed from a match fitness point of view. But I don't think the intercounty managers will mind that, Ciaran. It's almost like a semi-competitive competition at this stage, but they will be using it as the barometer or as the measuring stick to see where guys are heading into the championship. And you remember as well, they're not going from league back into club month in April and then back into championship again in May. This is league and a very short turnaround to championship again. So in one way the league is maybe diminished in terms of it being a competition, but it may be enhanced in terms of the fact that you have to get it right here because there's no break, there's no club action, and it's straight from this competition into championship. You can't really afford to stutter your way through it either.
No, without a doubt. And and if you look at the format they had this time last year, and I suppose it was through default because of the epidemic, the whole championship was started and ran off in the space of about 6 weeks. And I suppose prior to that, it was probably a 6 or 7 month job. So from that respect, it was huge learning. It can be done in a shorter span. And as you rightly pointed out, I see the league presently at the moment. I just see it as a dress rehearsal, number one. It's an opportunity to get the squad together, number two. And, no better place really to see what a player really is made of. Probably give them a taste of a bit of game time. See what he's like under a bit of pressure. And I suppose the big one really, when you look at the modern game, it's all about your first touch. It's holding on to the ball, retaining possession. And if your touch is good, you won't give it away because every little mistake is penalised. And it's given John Kiely, a chance to bring them all together in every league match, because to be fair, the modern inter-county player now, both football and hurling, are a natural athlete, and they're training to maintain the strength and condition that they already have. They all would be on individual programs. They all would be doing their own thing for the last number of months. But this is just a chance to get together as a group, a little army. Let's build a bit of spirit going and get a small bit of momentum going, even though we're under strength here and there. But we can still put it up to whatever team is put it in front of us, even under strength. And I'd say that's what they'll be looking for.
And speaking of the teams that are put in front of them, Tipperary on Saturday evening, regardless of what people say, this is a Tipperary team that were All-Ireland champions in 2019. That's only 2 years ago. And, I don't buy into this thing that, Tipperary, you don't win All-Irelands by being a bad team, or you don't win soft All-Irelands. I don't care what format it is or how it works out. At the end of the day, if you win an All-Ireland, you deserve one, and this is a Tipperary team, I think, that have got the potential to cause Limerick problems if they get it right. Good crop of young lads coming through there as well from under 21s who've been relatively successful in recent years too.
Yeah, they have. And I suppose I watched them closely last year on a good few occasions. And as you rightly pointed out, they're All-Ireland champions 2 years ago. And, no inter-county hurling team wins an All-Ireland handy. But I suppose it was made that bit handier when Limerick were knocked out in the semi-final. They knew they had to measure Kilkenny. And I suppose Limerick went about their business last year a few times when they met Tipperary, and they kind of let them know if they met them in year before, that's exactly what would have happened as well. But I don't see Tipperary being the force that they were in 2 years ago or 3 or 4 years ago. I see Liam Sheedy now is probably in the middle of rebuilding again, and and that's fine. You have to rebuild. You have to start. But when you're rebuilding and starting, it's not going to click. It's not going to happen straight away. So it just gives other teams a small bit of breathing space. I can't see them, or I don't see them being the force as powerful as they were a good number of years ago. In time, possibly 2 to 3 years ago, they could be exceptionally strong again. Only time will tell that. And, Liam Sheedy, as you rightly pointed out, the Super Under 21 team. And, he introduced those guys kind of late in the championship last year. Didn't kind of give too many of them game time in the league or earlier on the championship. But as the year was going on, he probably, I suppose, he was kind of backed into a corner that he had to play him. And a few of them did come up trumps. So it'll be interesting to see how many of these young guns he's going to give game time as the year progresses.
Yeah, I suppose if you look a bit further down the tracks, Ciaran, after this league competition, and you look at Limerick's first championship game, which is Cork, and having watched a good share of the Cork Club Championship last year, a very competitive Cork Club Championship, with it doesn't seem to be the kind of maybe 3-team stranglehold that there would be in the Limerick Championship. There seems to be more variety with teams who can beat each other down there. But has that translated into a more competitive Cork inter-county team, Ciaran, or where do you think Cork are at looking down the line to that first championship game against Limerick? I mean, we saw the 2019 opening round of the Munster round robin when Cork came up to the Gaelic grounds and did a job on Limerick, who were reigning All-Ireland champions at the time. So, and I think you go back to the previous year in 2018, and there was a Kyle Hayes' heroics in the last minute to rescue a draw blow in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in that wonderful summer evening. But it's a Cork team that, regardless how much people write them off, they can cause Limerick trouble on their day.
Yeah, they can. And I suppose they're the only team really that I'd probably pick that would have the ability to cause Limerick trouble. But as you rightly pointed out, on their day. And I suppose the issue I'd have with Cork, as you rightly pointed out, 2 or 3 years ago, I did see them very strong. Okay, they had the new manager in. A few players kind of after kind of retiring or told to retire. So that tells me they're in the middle of rebuilding also. So I certainly don't see them the force as they were a good number of years ago. I think Limerick have learnt since then. They do know they have a few quality forwards, and they do know that they have a few players that possibly could hurt them. And if those guys are probably babysitted on the particular day, they're not going to be really hurted in any other areas. Whereas 2 or 3 years ago, I would have been nervous playing Cork. Now, presently in 2021, I wouldn't have the same nerves tomorrow morning for playing them, and that's even in championship.
Yeah, and I think that the draw, obviously, for the Munster Championship sees Limerick pitted against Cork in one semi-final, with Tip awaiting the winners of Waterford and Clare in the other semi-final. Ciaran, who do you think is most likely to put it up to Limerick in that Munster Championship if you were to pick a team?
I suppose what I can really go on, Raphael, is what I saw last year. I haven't, obviously, no one has got the opportunity to see any team presently. And, okay, there's obviously plenty talk about the Clare issue down there at the moment. There was a bit in Cork, small bit in Tipperary. And even though that's going on, I'd be hoping that wouldn't be going into players' minds, and I don't think it will, but just with this outfit. The only team that I can see in Munster, probably giving Limerick a game of it at the moment, because I'm not convinced what I saw last year out of any team that are capable, first of all, of putting a system in place that can rattle Limerick's system, and they can dictate their own system after that. I'm not convinced of that yet. I haven't seen it. And I'm going on the matches that I'm going to see myself. But if I had to pick a team, I'd say Waterford. Waterford possibly shoving it onto them, and Cork could be dark horses. They're the only teams, and and even at that, Limerick would want to be having a very, very poor day. And in fairness to Limerick, they've been very consistent in 2018. I think there's only one match in particular that I can think of where they weren't off the blocks early, where they weren't fully tuned in, where there might have been a few little mistakes made on the line, and it probably cost them for a finish. And that was the game against Kilkenny in the semi-final of the All-Ireland. Other than that, they have been on any championship game from start to finish.
I suppose, Ciaran, you go outside of Munster then and you look at the teams this year, Wexford, Dublin, Galway, Kilkenny, from the Leinster side of it. Who are the protagonists, or who are the pretenders there who you think could cause Limerick trouble? I mean, we saw the Galway game last year. You know, Limerick did enough to just about keep them at arm's length, you know, for the majority of that game. They were like a boxer who was content to win on points, really, without ever going for a knockout punch.
Yeah, and come here, that's the way I viewed it myself. You know, they did enough on the day. Anytime there was a small bit of a squeeze put on that day, Limerick automatically were able to go into another gear and kind of just get themselves out of a bit of pressure at the time. And, you know, and I suppose from the neutral point of view, it looked at Galway were possibly that bit closer than they were. But I suppose Galway would be the obvious ones that you would pick. You know, there's a lot of speculation about Dublin the last number of years that they're coming, the great pick and the great selection. But, you know, still hot and cold, not coming, and haven't really delivered what they should be delivering, really, because there was savage team, savage pick, have the potential to be very good. Probably rattled Limerick there 2-3 years ago in the league game, all right. They appear to be organised, but, you know, I haven't seen it out of them since. And, you know, Kilkenny is Kilkenny. They're going to come. And the one thing, you know, what will definitely be in view when they're playing Kilkenny, you know, Kilkenny will go to the bitter end, but I still think they're possibly lacking a bit of smartness in the modern game. And I don't see them as the threat as they were. You know, and myself personally, I have serious time for Kilkenny. And, you know, as I said, I'm only giving my view and what I've seen in the last 1 or 2 years. And that's how I see it. You know, being honest, there's only one team that can catch Limerick this year, Raphael. That's Limerick themselves.
Ciaran, looking at the Limerick team for the weekend, and I suppose you look at a guy like David Reedy, who's had, you know, got more game time last year, and who's kind of building his game time within the Limerick squad. You know, he's a guy that we've expected a lot from over the last years, and this is you know, he's going to get some more chances again in this league campaign, as are plenty other players. It'd be interesting to see. You'd like to see him kick on again this year. He did have some good contributions last year, and he's a fella I think can be a useful addition for Limerick, and a more frequent addition for Limerick going forward.
Yeah, and he's a player I'd have a lot of time for, and I had him with Limerick 21s in his last year, and you know, has all the attributes, has ability, and I suppose just he probably tries too hard, and, you know, very honest player. Looking at him at the games he's got, you know, he's got plenty game time, has plenty opportunities to score, and probably not taking the opportunities, if the truth be known. And in fairness to the management, they're right to stick with him because he has something. But what's going to be very interesting, really, the coming season, in my opinion, when you see Barry Murphy back in the fray, when you see Cahill O'Neill also waiting on the wings, right? So automatically, the likes of Pat Ryan, the likes of Peter Casey, the likes of David Reedy, and, you know, they will be watching and waiting and watching the progress of these guys. Because when you look at our bench in 2018, I was probably more convinced in 2018 of the bench that they were coming on. They were almost guaranteed to deliver. Versus last year, okay, it was a bit of huffing, a bit of puffing. I suppose it wasn't as convincing as it was in 2018. And to be fair, you can take Paddy O'Loughlin out of that, because anytime Paddy O'Loughlin came from the bench, he always delivered the goods. And, you know, Paddy is after kind of slipping away from it for his own personal reasons, and probably, you know, would have been possibly or probably most consistent sub anytime he was used at Limerick, because I thought he did exceptionally well all the time. So he is going to be a bit of a loss because he was an automatic choice anywhere in the half-back line. And so it'll be interesting up front how our bench will do the coming season, because even though it did well enough last year, I still feel the 2000 bench, when they utilised it in 2018, possibly was more consistent, I felt.
Yeah, I'd agree with you with that, Ciaran. Other players, if you look at that inside forward line this weekend as well, it's the Napier lads, Adrian Breen and David Dempsey. Again, interesting to see what this brings, and again, will put pressure on the guys who are going to be in the substitutes bench this weekend. So it is all about generating that competition, seeing what options you have off the bench, and knowing what you have in reserve. But those guys have been at the pinnacle of the club game in Limerick over the past few years. I know Adrian Breen has been unlucky with injury as well, but that inside forward line is capable of causing problems for anyone.
Yeah, without a doubt. On paper, it's lethal. And, David Dempsey, a bit like David Reid, has got chances. And, I believe there's plenty good enough for it. But just, and I suppose you can be talking about a player for a good number of years. But, when push comes to shove, when you're given the jersey and you cross the white line, okay, obviously there's a game plan. You have to implement that. And I suppose, you have to kind of counteract that with your own type of style that you would usually have played. And they might be finding it difficult to kind of for that transformation. And, but Dempsey has it too. But, David really also has it. But I suppose their next step really is, as far as I'm concerned, on the big day, they have to go out and deliver the goods. And I suppose they have to do that for about 3 or 4 games in a row before they can kind of say, yeah, they're in the mix.
Super, Ciaran. Just before we finish up, prediction for Limerick Tipperary this weekend, or should I even ask you?
Yeah, come here. Listen, we don't know what Tipperary are going to come at. We don't know their frame of mind. Obviously, if I was a Tipperary man, I certainly would be feeling the hurt and the scars of the trouncing that Limerick did on us this time last year. Even though it's the league, I would be doing my level best to come out and send out a message. Even that being said, I still think Limerick have enough on the night, what they've picked with, and their bench possibly to get a win.
Ciaran, no plans for Patrick Swell to join any Super Leagues or anything like that we haven't heard about, or there's no announcements from any of the chairmen out that side of the county?
No, but I believe that's at offership level, and I'm led to believe the Napier chairman, Patrick Swell chairman, Kilmallock chairman, Adair chairman, Doon chairman, and Kilmallock chairman and Ballybrown chairman. I believe they're all meeting nice and quietly this weekend at the Red Cow Hotel and seeing what's going to happen going forward.
Right, Ciaran. Well, we wait to see plenty of TV money swishing around for that Super League, I'd imagine. Ciaran, obviously with the pandemic and the heightened awareness of the importance of mental health and of people having options to seek help if they need it, you've taken a step into the business that we all know that you obviously were working in it and are working in it, but tell us about your new venture and I suppose how it's been going and the importance of people knowing that there are services out there to connect with if they do need help.
Yeah, thanks for that, Raphael, and give me the opportunity to have a small little chat about it. Yeah, I suppose myself, a man called James Canaan, he's from Tipperary and he's a lecturer in ICAS College. He's a Dr. James Canaan, he's a priest, and I suppose we put our heads together and we came up with a new service called My Move. And, today there's a huge issues for young people in relation to addiction. And at the moment, many existing services can't cope with already. There's a possibility you could be waiting for 3 months, even for assessment, and you still wouldn't be guaranteed a bed. So My Move Counselling offers to meet people suffering from alcohol, drug, gambling addiction. And we have a team of trained, experienced counsellors who will provide one-to-one counselling to those in addiction, and a special program for family members where addiction is in the home and who need to talk and get help with the effect addiction is having on their loved ones and their family members. My move also, Raphael, provides help for those struggling with mental health issues such as depression and the effects of bereavement and loss in their life. My move also counselling service to meet the various needs people have in life, such as challenges, changes people need to make, as well as dealing with addiction. We also provide counselling with help in various supportive ways to encourage people to bring about the changes they need at this time. And I suppose due to the growth in mental health issues and addiction, my move combines these to help people to have a better quality of life. So, we couldn't be starting Raphael really at a better time, and I suppose I'm in the addiction industry, if you like, for 15 years. I worked 4 years in the homeless industry, and I suppose I'm 11 years behind in Coonbera residential treatment. And for the last number of months, I'm kind of on my own in my own practice. And, I'd say, if I had to say it's pretty frightening what people are going through, I'd be kind of minimizing it. I suppose we're facing difficult, tough times. And, I think myself personally, we couldn't be starting this at a better time because there's an awful lot of people out there struggling, even outside of addiction, they're struggling in how to cope in life and how to negotiate life, especially in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah, Ciaran, I suppose it does put a different perspective on things, and it can change, I suppose, how you value different things as well. And I think that the pandemic certainly has given people more of a grounding in what is and isn't important. And not everyone is capable of making those kind of those decisions or figuring those kind of things out. And sometimes that bit of help, is essential.
Yeah, without a doubt, and if you're not equipped with the tools how to negotiate certain areas or certain issues in your life, you are going to struggle, you are going to hit a wall, and the last thing we want anybody to see is kind of fall into this little hole, black hole, and I did a bit of a research myself for the last 4 months, and I'm not minimizing or downplaying the epidemic. It is there 110%. And I suppose in the last 4 months, I know 2 myself personally who have died from the coronavirus. But I could mention 10 people that I know who committed suicide and addiction related. And I suppose the second one probably isn't highlighted enough. And I suppose we're there for whatever people who are struggling and whatever area of their life. And as you rightly pointed out, it's just to provide an ear, and I suppose to give somebody an invisible toolbox to carry a set of tools that you will be able to apply to your life, and that, please God, you get a small bit of peace, bit of contentment, and a bit of happiness and fulfillment out of life. And, that's our aim, and that's what we're providing.